Well, just talking about people who really don't know their job, as you and I are speaking right now, and to our viewers all over Australia, all over the world, it is absolutely pelting with rain. In Sydney, the record of rainfall for a year in Sydney has been broken. So far, we've had 2,200 millimetres, which is about 88 inches. If you divide that by 12, it averages out at 7 inches every month and more. It's pelting with rain, yet we had to suffer the stupidity of a person called Flannery, who was made Australian of the Year for arguing that the dams would never fill, it wouldn't ever rain again. Mark, how do these people get away with this?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, climate change analysis is a cult. Effectively on the left, it's a quasi-religious belief that they've got, and anything they say as part of that cult seems to be acceptable. Now, Tim Flannery said that the rivers and dams in Sydney would never fill again. Alan, they must have filled 20 times in the last 18 months,
yes,
and they're filling again today. So this bloke could have university sinecures around the place. Do they defrock him, take his robe off him and take away his silly hat and say, listen, mate, you are so wrong in your predictions, yes, and such a false prophet, you should never come anywhere near the higher education system again? Do the media cancel this guy for being, more incorrect than anyone in our recent public life? Of course not. These people live on and move on to different iterations. Remember at the time of the 2019-20 bushfires, the Green left said we'll have bushfires every single summer in Sydney. Well, ever since they said that, it hasn't stopped raining, and the summers have never been so mild, and there's not a bushfire within Cooee. So they get it wrong time after time after time. They want climate change to be true. They need it to be true inside their cult, and they consistently conflate weather events with climate. And not surprisingly, they consistently get it wrong.
Absolutely. Thorburn, Andrew Thorburn, the so-called Thorburn Affair, Essendon Club. The pastor he made the statements 7 or 8 years ago, but he's denied freedom of speech. He's not meant to say these things. Thorburn is denied freedom of religion. I note back in January, a Muslim female in women's AFL playing for the Giants said she would sit out the Pride round because as a Muslim, she had a responsibility to represent her faith and her community. That wasn't a problem to the Giants coach, Alan McConnell. And I said today that Thorburn should be reinstated and the intolerant Essendon president, Barham, should go. Your thoughts, Mark?
Well, you're right about Haneem Zarika from the Giants, who sat out the game because of the Pride jersey, according to her Islamic faith. And she was hailed, Alan, as a good example of multiculturalism and the mature tolerance of our society and the AFL code that they could put up and tolerate her religious point of view. So that's for Islam, but almost identical views expressed by this church that Thorburn has headed up in more recent times. He's kicked out of the public square and kicked out of his position at the club. So it just shows you the extent of religious discrimination against Christians. And why is this happening? Well, the lefties know that if they bring down Christianity, they're bringing down one of the essential pillars of our civilization, our moral code, and many of the good things that have happened in civil society. And as I said in my maiden speech in this state parliament, and you were there that night, no one in our society should feel prohibited or afraid of saying four of the most glorious words in the history of our civilization: I am a Christian. And unfortunately now, saying those words, I am a Christian, is not seen as a glorious contribution to our civilization. It's seen as a reason to cancel people, sack them from their jobs, and this is one of the worst trends in our society that we could possibly have.
Good on you, Mark. Wonderful to talk to you. I told you, viewers, every week you get a dose of common sense from this bloke. Aren't we lucky to have him?